Hello, everybody. So I'm going to talk about something pretty minor. It's a TV show called Married at First Sight, the Australian edition. And a couple of years ago, we had a scenario in which one of the contestants, one of the brides, Domenica, smashed a glass and waved it at another bride called Olivia. And the interesting thing is that at the time when it was first aired and in the previews and everything, it looked like it was right up against the throat. But then later on, when they aired it a second time, it looked like it was way over there. So what really happened there? Well, the first thing to note is that up until that point in the series, Olivia was seen to be a hero, what they call a hero. She was perfect. Everybody loved her. And Domenica was someone that people didn't really like. And in fact, the reason that we had that fight was because Olivia was calling Domenica out about her behaviour. And Domenica said, "No, I'm not like that," which is the kind of thing that people often do. Now, they shouldn't do it. It's called glassing, where you smash a glass on the table, often a beer bottle or a wine bottle, and you bring it up to someone's throat. Now, in this case, it was a wine glass. She smashed it on the table and then went like that. Now, what really happened? Was it like that, or was it way out like that and no real threat? Well, there was actually police inquiry about this. In fact, there were two. There was, and these were resolved before it went to air. So the first one was against Married at First Sight, and so there was a police inquiry to say, did they make the show safe enough for everyone, given that someone was glassed like that, that they had it up to their throat, and they had to show the footage and all that to police, and there was an inquiry, and the police determined that Married at First Sight had done their due diligence. That it wasn't their fault that it had happened. But they were also told by police that you are not allowed to show the full unedited version on TV, because if they showed just how bad it was, it may lead people to think that Domenica should be in prison, and it may lead to all sorts of things like that. So they were told they had to edit it. So they didn't do it because they wanted to. They did it because police told them they had to. So then, of course, we had a second police inquiry lodged by Olivia against Domenica. Now, this second police inquiry didn't go anywhere. And this was actually ongoing when it was aired. And the reason it didn't go anywhere was because police had already determined that Married at First Sight producers were not at fault for hiring Domenica. So there was no case to answer. So then what of course happened after that was that then so Domenica had an OnlyFans account, and OnlyFans is essentially porn. It's just you can make your own porn instead of having to have a porn production series. It's basically make your own porn. It's and some men do it too, and some of the stuff on there is not porn. It's not 100% porn, but most of it's porn. And you pay $10 a month, $30 a month, however much it is, to access photos, videos, whatever. Almost all of it is porn. It's nudity, it's sex, it's all that sort of stuff. And so Domenica had an existing OnlyFans account before the show aired. And Olivia hacked into it somehow, or maybe she paid for a subscription, and then she showed photos of it to other contestants to try to badmouth Domenica. Now, arguably, since it was a public site, OnlyFans you can access publicly, there was no issue with showing that. And Domenica didn't actually complain about that, though many people in the public did. Incorrectly, they shouldn't have. But what Domenica actually complained about was that Olivia was giving content to people for free that they should have to pay for. In other words, this was a civil matter and Olivia should pay her a certain sum of money. Didn't end up on air, so it's just that, you know, however many copies of it, 8 copies, $10, she owes $80. That's what Domenica was complaining about. So the issue then is that even though it was actually only a civil matter, it was essentially theft, $80 worth, and Olivia could argue that she didn't mean it as theft. The producers deliberately portrayed it in a way that made Olivia look like a monster, like she was defaming her. And this is an edit. Now, they're allowed to do that because they're allowed to edit the show however they want to. But the reason why they did that was to cover up for Domenica glassing Olivia. So the end result of this is that by the time the show had finished, Domenica was a hero. Everybody loves her. She got lots of TV show appearances and so forth. She was host of this. She got her own podcast. Everybody loves her. Well, everybody hates Olivia. Now, Olivia did do the wrong thing by stealing her OnlyFans content, but it was a pretty minor thing. Did she overreact with being glassed? I'd argue no. I mean, you're getting somebody putting a glass up to your throat. It's not very nice. Now, how close did the glass go to her throat? Well, I've seen the unedited footage. Now, you're not really supposed to see it. It's suppressed and all that, but it does exist. Things tend to get leaked. And it was pretty close. Now, was Domenica trying to kill her? Probably not, because you saw the reaction. She went like that and then realised what she'd done and realised she was on TV, so stopped it. So there wasn't really a threat to Olivia's life, but there certainly was a threat, and Olivia had every reason to be worried about it. Now, I think obviously police have done their due diligence and they found that the producers weren't guilty. Good on them. That's probably the correct decision. They also warned them, and will note that since then, Married at First Sight have been more careful about how they show footage, how they antagonise people, because they'd probably put Domenica in a bit of an angry mood. But I don't think there's any doubt that objectively, Domenica was the villain. Olivia was the good one. And because of selective editing and because of that situation, flipped. Now, if they'd shown the correct footage, I don't think there's any doubt that Olivia would have stayed as the hero, Domenica would have stayed as the villain. There's really no serious doubt about that. And that difference from there to there was the difference between Olivia a hero, oh sorry, Olivia a hero, oh you poor thing, Olivia villain, oh you overreacted. And it was the difference between Domenica staying as the villain that she was and Domenica being a hero. And this is perhaps it's what happens with some reality TV shows. And Married at First Sight, the way that Australia does it, they sign away their lives. So you're essentially flipping a coin if you're going to get a hero edit or a villain edit. And it makes me wonder about some of the people who've been said to be villains, like Jack and all these other ones. And this series, there's Tim. And it's almost always men that are displayed as the villains. Occasionally they'll have the odd woman, but it's usually men. And you're like, that if you believe this show, men are like 10 times as bad as women. And it just doesn't add up to the statistical reality of things. And it's there's a lot of villains, and I wonder if they're really villains. Are they really that bad? And then there's a lot of heroes, and you wonder, are they really that good? I mean, I know for Domenica that, I mean, maybe she did other good things, but that was not a good thing. And I mean, sure, she was victimized in a very minor way on the OnlyFans. It was only that she was stealing the content. It wasn't defaming. It wasn't showing nude photos that people shouldn't be shown or anything like that. It was just, it wasn't, it wasn't. I mean, people around the internet thought that it was, oh no, you're putting naked photos of someone out. How terrible you are. But this was on OnlyFans. Anyone could look at that. It'd be like if you went on a porn site and found a porn star and then goes, hey, everybody, look at this naked photo of this porn star. That's very different to if you have a situation where somebody, private citizen, and you've taken a naked photo of them, perhaps from a treetop, and then shown that out to everybody. Very different, not the same situation. And people got confused because of the editing. And I do wonder how much of that show, and perhaps other shows like it, do have bad editing that does flip the switch. Now, of course, I might be wrong, and the information I have might be wrong, and maybe Domenica's this wonderful, amazing person who, perhaps for some other reason, got angry and went like that with a glass. And look, perhaps there's people out there that say, well, look, if I get angry enough, I'll do that. And I'm sure they are. And they probably, doesn't necessarily mean that they're awful people. Just because one moment you lose your temper and you do something like that. And really, I think if you got to be honest, she didn't hurt Olivia. It's just that there's a difference in fear between that and that. How close it gets. But I also think there's an argument to say that even if it was out like that, it's still kind of scary because she went, "Arr, arr," and we saw that. We all saw that. That when you do that, even if it's way out there, it's still pretty scary. But fact was, it was actually up here, and that's an issue. And you've got to have these things, and I do wonder sometimes. I wonder every time that we see that and we see these people displayed as villains, if they really are. And some of the time we know that the producers go in there and say to them, "Hey, do this terrible thing," and then they do it, and then people hate them for it, and yet they kind of have to do it. Is it the producer's fault? Did Domenica do that because the producers antagonised it? Indeed, did Olivia get the OnlyFans pictures because producers suggested it to her? Probably suggest they did. I mean, they obviously went too far with the glassing. Um, and again, I don't think that showing an OnlyFans picture is that far, but I mean, potentially it was illegal. She was never charged, but showing that, I mean, it's an $80 thing. He could have been charged and gone to Court of Petty Sessions or a Judge Judy thing and had to pay back $80. And that was a thing that, if I weighed them up, if I weighed them up on one hand glassing or attempted glassing, because she didn't actually glass her, didn't actually connect. And on the other hand, stealing pornographic content and sharing it with others without their permission. $80 fine. That's a criminal attack. It'd be criminal if she actually attached, even if it didn't kill her, even if it just put a bit of glass in there, even if it just scratched her. That's a criminal attack. Going like that, criminal threat, potentially, mm, sort of one of those grey ones. But that's criminal. Let's go to jail. That's a fine. It's $80. And yet, we sort of said it. This was much higher, much lower. Because the selective editing made this look 20 times worse than it was. And the selective editing made that look several times not as bad as it was. And there was also her overreaction, which wasn't actually an overreaction if you looked at the unedited footage. So we were all manipulated, and people are still manipulated by it. And that's a problem, and it's a problem with all of it. And it makes me quite nervous when I watch things like that, that when you watch things like that, you're probably not seeing how it really is. I mean, realistically, if you've seen how much that show has ruined people's reputation, and it's helped some people's reputation, helped their, in other ways. I mean, I'm sure Domenica, for one, benefited enormously from it, and there's others that have gone up a lot from it. But it's almost a flip of the coin. So they're not really looking for love; they're looking for fame. 50% of them get it, and 50% of them have their life destroyed. And it's almost a coin flip. And I think the Domenica versus Olivia thing is a situation where, I mean, retrospectively, had Domenica not glassed her, she would have stayed as the villain. She was the villain before that. And Olivia would have stayed as the hero. And we would today be having Olivia on talk shows, and Domenica would be someone we wouldn't be talking about. Because the reality is, Domenica was portrayed as the villain up until that point. So, and that is so, it's almost hilarious if it wasn't real people. The flip of the coin, you do something so awful that they have to hide it. And not only do they hide it, but they hide it by making you get the hero villain and make your victim get the villain edit. It's an awful thing to happen, but I also wonder. I mean, we've got Jake now apparently badmouthed some people. It looked like the producers told him to. And I wonder now, has he lost his job? You know, is he is his reputation ruined? Or was he really that bad to start with? I don't think so. But you know, maybe it was. Maybe it was that bad. Anyway, that's it for me. Bye bye now.